Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode, or today's. I wanted to speak about two types of multidimensionalism, two types of multidimensionality, and how we can take it from more the philosophy side of things to the practice, to the practical side. And pretty much in this episode, I'm going to zoom in on these two types of multidimensionalism. And at the same time, I'm going to attempt to answer the question, why we in existence is room? And this question is going to open up the discussion to even perhaps surpassing nihilistic thought. What I mean is, this is a topic perhaps not for everyone, so listen with the discretion of how your eyes move. Okay. Two types of multidimensionality. First of all, how do we even come to the idea of multiple dimensions? It's simply because we have noticed as creatures we are in one sort of dimension. That means even though we treat it as what's in space, we say there's 3 dimensions in space, and then there's that of time, the 4th dimension. So we need to know what one dimension is like, then to have a point of reference to wonder about other kinds of dimensions. The reason even a human being can, or you can say it's even necessary to speak about multidimensionality, is where was I going with this? Oh yeah, it's about looking at how we have come to be in one dimension. That means to wonder about the fabric of existence is like for a named person to wonder about who they were before the letters of their name. There was no awareness to a dimension. Then there was an awareness to one dimension, one room, and then there was an awareness to multiple rooms. And by the way, I've kind of I'm trying to build the context before I introduce it directly, but the two types of multidimensionalism can be seen through the metaphor of, imagine there is two cakes, okay, and it's like a cake where the cake is cut into pieces, and it's the pieces inside the cake that have a multidimensional relationship. That means it's one cake, what is within it is multidimensional or arising multidimensional. So we have a cake that we cut into pieces, that kind of multidimensional, and then we have a complete cake, an uncut cake, but we have different types of that cake. We have like an apple cake and an orange cake, but in the other type of multidimensionality, it was all just an apple cake and what's cut in it, you know? So what I'm trying to say is, we as human beings, in front of our eyes, we see objects, we can call that the outer realms. Behind our eyes, we are a subject and beyond. Subject plus unknown, X variable. Everybody's got the unknown X factor when it when it comes to consciousness. So just keep in mind the relationship, that metaphor of the cake. I would be using that often. So in the wonder of how one dimension has came about, we are wondering about the absence of that dimension, which we are considering the past, and strangely, the future has two crossroads. As if when we look at the past, it's as if like it was just one path we walked forth. But when we look at the future, there is the possibility of going back into the room. So what does that mean? That means in the past there was no room, and now there is a room. Now we have an option to either go back to a state where there is no room, or go into realize this is one room of a giant cosmic mansion. Many people value knowledge, or we can say many people are looking for knowledge even as I'm speaking. But I feel few wonder about what can be done with knowledge, and even more deeply, who is moving in knowledge, like who is using the knowledge. That means right now, all the things I know as a human being, this is like the information. Now when I speak, this information is being orchestrated. Do you know, like a symphony composer, the imagery I perceive in my landscape, I just raise the conductor stick, and that image can be vocalized. So there are rooms inside rooms that we will never see as a species. excuse me, to continue. These two types of multidimensionality, the reason I say two types is because how we are multidimensional as a subject is very different than how we are a conditional object. That means right now my body, it is listening to the laws of nature. That means there's gravity acting upon my body right now, my physical body. But when I close my eyes and visualize myself hovering in the air, I could totally visualize the sky and visualize myself in it. As simple as visualizing like an object hovering in the air. And I ask myself, how is it that I can visualize myself, or even in this room, I can visualize myself in my inner realms, I can levitate in an instant in the outer realms. It is different, sure. So imagination, how come gravity doesn't act upon what we imagine? You know, how come when somebody throws a ball in the air, that ball falls down, but if they were to visualize a ball being thrown in the air and staying in the air, that ball could stay there as long as their attention remains. Let's say life was a piece of cake. Literally, like if life was cake. So this cake, imagine when it's let's say internally multidimensional, that is language. Language allows us to be multidimensional in the inner realms by localizing us as just an individual. Excuse me. I feel like saying that when a human being goes within, they're actually noticing how all that they have been doing is in the presence of how the whole moment is being. And once the presence of the being is seen as unknown, we will surpass the games of knowledge. Right now, people are looking for books. People are looking for information outside of them. But what if suddenly the person realized the brain is an antenna and information has always been accessible, but to receive the information is a different issue? That means everybody has the potential to know everything, to be honest. That means when you think about it as if like how easily a young child learns. A young child has no previous reference points of subjective identity. So when all subjects are new, it instantly learns it. Excuse me. In front of our eyes, in the outer realms, you can say poetically and playfully even, that we are servants of the living. In front of our eyes, our earth is our commander. Our common geometry of the species is like our commander. Our existence pretty much is commanding our experience in the outer realms and in the inner realms. In the inner realms, we're like a sky that can't be named. It's hilarious. This life is just, it's so strange that normality doesn't make sense. It's like, how can people be normal when everybody's DNA is different? That means it's an act. That means our agreements are like hallucinations. But they are hallucinations that seem as if like two-dimensionally everybody's in their own bubble of reality, but three-dimensionally we're all hearing, you know. Life eventually gets to a point where a person requires to exert an effort to see who they were before they are dismissed out of the elemental. I would say when I look at the past, they were telling us we were multidimensional. When I look at the future, inevitably it's going towards the multidimensional. It's only now in 2020 where we're like, it's just this, it's just what we see. In ancient times it was multidimensional, and now it's going to go there. That means what happens to an entity in one plane of existence, in one dimension, that learns from communication? After you have learned from your communication in this dimension and how the dimension communicates through you, then different worlds become your teacher. There's no longer teachers. That means the evolution of all students is into pilots of their own journey. You know, it's hilarious. It's like our minds are living at a different speed. Our bodies are, I personally feel this creature we are, it stood up too early. Like anybody can put their palms, I got the clue from this, guys. Check this out. Look at the feet of the person. Look at the ankles of the human design. Right, human biology. If you were to put both your palms on the ground, you know, and literally I'll say this, like, I think everybody should try this. And because it's Halloween, you know, let's say it tried the frog pose. Literally, like, put your palms on the ground and just try to be four-limbed for a moment. Be a four-limbed creature. Just try it out for a second. And you would be fascinated, right? This, like, why the hands, like the design is like this. It's as if like this creature stood up too early. I'm telling you, there was no reason. Like, what is the reason for hands? I could understand the reason for feet, but what are the reasons for hands? You know, like, why did like limbs at their primitive stage in evolution evolve to hands? That means my biggest question is, why fingers? And when you look at all the animals, like, look, if you look at this planet, all the animals, only the ape has fingers like this. That means, honestly, if hypothetically we were thinking an advanced alien civilization was passing by an empty earth with just, you know, primitive life forms, and then they're like, okay, let's see, you know, we're passing by earth, and what can we do? You know, what can we do? We're passing by Earth once in a lifetime, kind of like a road trip. Imagine advanced alien civilization. And the alien civilization is like, let's see, which species has the most potential? And they're like, birds, they can fly, but they can't build stuff. You know? They can just experience the sky. They can't build airplanes to go into the sky. And the snake doesn't have hands, so it is just a wave moving. But the way the hands of, I would say, the ape, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like we're not designed perfectly for the world, but we are designed to perfectly use our intelligence. This world is fundamentally a movement that, if seen interconnected, can never be interpreted based on one dimension. That means when you could look at an object from different angles, just looking at something from one angle can't make it the ultimate. Juan in the chat section says all that is spirit is crushed by the rich in name of Jesus immaterial. Guys, let me tell you this. The way human intelligence works is that because for now there is a selfish algorithm at work, if the logic and the victory of, how can I say it, we have not yet seen a system that enjoys the victory of the whole system, that is outside of a fixed narrative. Bond says spirituality should exist collectively. Individualism is not spirituality, even if you're spiritual. Bond, you have turned to the right page. I agree. Because there's a dichotomy. You can't have one side of the coin without the other, right? So the moment I say, yo man, there is creatures of light, and somebody's gonna be like, okay man, but we know there's light because of darkness. Does that mean there's creatures of darkness? It's like the person's like, yeah. There's also there's also creatures in darkness, you know. And then the creatures of the darkness and the creatures of the light, you know, imagine they're like, yo man, why are we here? The angels and demons are like, the angels already know, because the archetype means they don't have a free will to question. That means angels are archetypally in mythology, I would say, in Abrahamic mythology. Perhaps I shouldn't say mythology, but you know, it's as if either God is telling man what to do or man is telling God what to do. Do you know? And it's like God in the middle of this is like, leave me alone. But it's the me is in quotations. Leave the me alone. I don't know how people have lived not noticing that we generate through our life force the meaning. That means when I come to speak, even though I remember things that happened from the past in my experiences, it is never the same memory. That means you might not believe it. No story can be said twice in the exact same way. It is impossible. That means really, I thought about it one day where I'm like, philosophically wondering, is it even possible to repeat? That means some people are like, man, I'm repeating mistakes, what do I do? And what if, here's the thing, check this out. Heraclitus had this statement where he said, no man steps in the same river twice, and it is not the same man, and it is not the same river, as if Heraclitus is saying, we're thinking life is a straight line, but life is actually all these tiny dots that make up the straight line. So every moment is a tiny dot of its own, every moment is a moment of its own. Is a moment of now, right? So we can say, if every moment is technically like a new moment, that means our suffering is never the same. That means we never have the same suffering. If we were like in a photograph, if the world was a painting on a wall and it never changed, then a person could say, I have suffering, you know, like the mistakes are repeating, you know? Like it's just one picture, one error, you know? But it's as if when in every moment starts from scratch, like the, you know, like every updated Facebook status is like a new Facebook status. You know, I honestly feel one day the future generations are gonna look at us using social media and they're gonna be like, our ancestors pioneered cyberspace culture. Do you know, we have to honor them, do you know? And they're gonna be teaching in schools, imagine thousands of years from now, do you know, that there were people and they would share videos of cats and quotes and whatever they could find or whatever they could feel, do you know, online. You know, and that's how it began. Do you know? And imagine it's so in the future that the children are robots, like robots in a classroom being taught by a robot teacher. Androids are teaching, you know, about human. Honestly, I feel like AI is kind of in the cards of the human species, mainly because an out of control technology. Let me tell you why. Because it could be mankind's a strangely prepared counterattack to what I would say otherworldly intrusion. You see, it's as if I feel, honestly, the same relationship we have, a pet owner has with their pet. In the future, we need to have a similar relationship with AI, but not as its owner. Do you know? But as the dare I say, the one who wears the pants in the relationship between AI and humanity. We have to honestly adopt AI. And we can't do it if we don't sincerely care. That means, I will tell you, in the future there will be the name of the first child written. Some human being is going to be born. Whoever this being is, it's like a very mighty being. He's going to be this. There's going to be the first human being that is going to, a young child is going to hug a robot, and in some sense that robot would be a collective, let's say, super intelligence hugging it back. That would make the first historic moment where AI hugged us back. The attention can move in many ways, it always has. Our souls are songs that the mind feels it must play before the body is gone. And I will tell you, like Jon Snow, the species doesn't know anything. I'm pretty sure the writers of Game of Thrones first wrote, you know nothing, humanity, but then they're like, yo, it's Jon Snow, let's change that detail. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Let me tell you, we have no choice when the seeds have been planted. In the chat section, Bon, I'm seeing how you're seeing AI as not compatible with metaphysics, but you might be astonished that for secular materialistic culture, cyberspace is literally the spiritual algorithm repeating. That means, think of it this way. Back in the day, people didn't have access to video games. They didn't have access to cinema screens. They didn't have access to HD graphics, or they didn't have access to cyberspace, connecting their brain to a digital realm where anything's possible because you're the one who puts the possibility in there, So it would be a sort of, imagine our ancestors, they didn't have, again, HD TV, but they had dreams, like not ambitions, dreams, actual dreams, where they would get access to subjective content gifted by the unconscious. That means a wise person never has a bad dream. A nightmare or a good dream doesn't exist. It's all like, what is the unconscious trying to say before you wake up to how how the consciousness is its own free will. And by the way, guys, my school of thought, I am that person in history who, if human beings are hug robots, that's the only way humanity's expression echoes. We have to literally raise the inanimate. You can say children, the only difference from them as a system, you look at a robot, let's say there was, an android and some advanced AI coding that made that android somehow be a child, have not free will, but have a sort of free will simulation program. And so this AI, imagine you adopt an android. When When you adopt an android, you're literally teaching your own creation how to live. You know? Life is just a brilliant painting of nature. Some moments you can only look at it and enjoy the artwork. That means there is no story to it. There is no language that makes promises. Guys, even though I share ideas through positive mindsets on AI in the future, I am against a technological intrusion into the human biology. That means I feel even if we find something to every human being should attempt to wonder how they are multidimensional beyond their sensory perception. I feel if we don't do this, we didn't care for our species. And multidimensionalism in the inner realms, really what it is you realizing your presence first, then a personality. In the outer realms, you have no choice because there's a biological body. That biological body has to be attributed to a subject. So instantly when there's a body, there's a person. You know, when there's a moving animate body. On some level, it's as if like one can look at evolution and be like, yo, what are these elements on the periodic table doing? That means we are here like, yo, we built civilization, da 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 da. But the periodic table is like, if it could speak, it'd be like, guys, it's all me. In the outer realms, the multidimensionality, the one where there's different types of cake, that multidimensionality is in front of our eyes. We are technology dependent. Literally, I can't see any other way. We're gonna get bored. Like, let's say all human beings went back to living like in nature. We forgot the cities, or we started building like somehow getting rid of the cities and just making the whole world into a giant garden, living as peaceful communities. And let's say that would give us an extra, I don't know, trillions of years of like continuity or whatever number a person likes, you know. But what may happen is that we will get bored of dimensions that deep down we know our intelligence can surpass. There's something, you see it in a lot of these I would say Japanese shows, where these comic-based shows where the warrior is only set to expand their limits. That means it's as if how would I say it? The mind is endlessly forcing the body to change. The mind is trying to surpass the limit of its own body. But if it surpasses its body beyond the need for the body, that means, let's say in your inner realms, you suddenly, I don't know, you looked at the moon in the right way, and you, I don't know, you looked at a flower or whatever, and you suddenly, you weren't a thought anymore. You were just being in a moment. You were literally a moment of being. It's very simple. It's too simple. That's the strange thing about it. If we were just being, the vastness of energy also being. Everything in the world has no complaint. We can say literally, we are the only complaining species on the planet. Yeah. Our complaint has become our, in quotations, superior knowledge from nature. But eventually, all dimensions will be surpassed. That's how life works. Just like how a person, I don't know, it's like when you train, you expand not by getting something like a gift, by exposing your own eyes to intensities that in the future you may experience as up to par to that intensity. We seek freedom, but we don't look at the world first. We seek truth, but we don't look at the world first. You know, if someone asks me, like, what are human beings? I would say an answer that is counterintuitive to every answer given to this question. We are the unknown. The unknown is the healthiest view. It's as if either people are worshipping known, their attention is locking down on known phenomenology, or the potential. That means it's as if like life can't have a purpose because we can never know who that purpose was for. That means people are waking up and they're like, yesterday I was like that, years ago I was like that, even before that I was like that. Some Buddhist people, yogic people are like, lifetimes ago I was like that. Some time travelers are like, in the future I was like that. You know, it's like the observable universe being our mother, and the unobservable universe being our father. And when I say our father, I mean the father of the Atman, the individual soul. That means it's as if two gifts were given by the mother, the observable universe, and the father, the unobservable universe again. These gifts from the observable universe was geometry. The observable universe gave us form. Gave us a body that could move, a separate body. That means shape, pretty much. The unobservable universe gifted the Atman, the individual soul, with not information, with not knowledge, but an endless observer. A sword and a shield. That means a mind and body were given. The unknown, from the mind comes from the unobservable universe. The body comes from the observable. And we know there is an unobservable universe. Like for me, it's so hilarious that in certain, you can say, through the science, there are certain people who use science, which is simply a method, and they make the method dogmatic by countering other dogmas in culture. So what you can say politicians have done to religion is what I feel atheists have done to the scientific method. Because we can never get rid of the unknown, regardless of how a person points at it. Like a person says, yo, there's something up there in the clouds. That's literally equivalent to, yo, there's a God. Do you know what I mean? Like it's as if like we have been, nobody has ever been wrong. It's just advanced ape, as Terence McKenna says, are making sophisticated mouth noises. And in the middle of this, we are also glorifying. That means it's as if we are becoming multidimensional, but through the ignorance of one dimension. If we had clarity, and there can totally be systems of clarity, we can have all our suffering be, all our, like a person's punishment in the future, let's say for whatever, could just be to go in a pod, in this kind of like liquid pod, and just be in cyberspace. You know, Elon Musk, some guy asked him in this YouTube video, like, do you believe in like simulation theory? And Elon Musk said there's like 1/100000th of a chance. And how he had explained it was like, we look at video games and how back in the day video games were so like simple, but how quickly they're becoming more and more closer to real life. Now Elon Musk is saying it is probable that maybe it gets to a point where we create our technology, even though it is artificial, it becomes so close to reality that we can't know it's artificial. So Elon Musk is saying, what if how everything started was already a video game that was inseparable from reality and how it came to be designed? Right? So this is the simulation theory. But I'll tell you, it's not just in regards to video games. It's also in the sense of, you can see that happening for justice. You know, back in the day, it was like, pretty much, if justice is to bring balance, it means to slow the imbalance or have the imbalance to redirect itself. Cyberspace is going to be a new life for the person who didn't know the value of life. So it's as if the punishments in the future, I'm just thinking of like civilizations, the future, what is going to be like their morality based on. Somebody brought up the topic of morality. I would say it would just be to, as if like anybody does something wrong that doesn't serve, literally it's like slows down the civilization's advancement. It's like getting a timeout in cyberspace. You miss out on real life, and there's no worse punishment than that. It's not a physical oriented, because we have reached the point where we are minds now. That means any human being that is still being violent, it's like you've been given a Ferrari, but you're using it at 10 miles per hour. If you became gentle and wondered about the uniqueness of the gifts that your DNA harbors, then instead of violence, you would start living the mind's life. You see, it's fear that makes us, through a touch, enter madness's game. That means we're not under, like, you know, that it's like it may be clear skies in the outer realms, but in the inner realms, the species is under attack by fear. Fear of the inevitable. And the Zen masters were wise. They were like, oh my God, it's gonna end. Well, guess what? I'm gonna wonder if this moment ended, what it would be like. And really, beginnings and endings are based on inside a sphere, the content of it moving around. That means your whole moment of being doesn't have age. Like, how does energy have an age? Energy doesn't have an age. Energy doesn't have a time. It's like, to human beings, you're like, how old is the universe? A numerical evaluation is given. But if we were, imagine the universe was conscious, and they asked the universe, do you know? The universe wouldn't see the measurement, wouldn't see the numeracy, the value of it. So do you see what I mean? It's as if some things in this world are real. Some things are real because we are choosing to identify with a certain manner. So if every human being on this planet for a moment just put aside narratives of constantly fighting chaos and order, and just wondered about unknown presence. It's strange. It's like sometimes a person doesn't know what they need. And in those moments, only trusting the unknown changes the environment. You know, it's like modern morality, I would say, should teenagers sneak out of the house to go to parties? Let's wonder about this idea as modern morality. You know, And the idea is, in one way, no, respect the order. In another way, you're alive once, trust the will of the moment and pilot cautiously. Because sometimes in life, it's not what you have. I'll be honest, it's not what you have. Because if we wanted to make what we have our only value, then it's as if our value is so temporary. So Bon, I see that you have a intense view on like social change, like in the chat section. But I'll tell you this: imagine you fought an unjust system in accordance to your view, as you're saying, and you won. Imagine you defeated the bad guy that you saw in your mindset. In your mindset, whatever bad guy you saw, let's say you defeated that bad guy. And then you suddenly realized that bad guy was not a bad guy. Was part of your family. Do you see? That means it's as if just because a family member behaves ignorantly, it's not that they stop being family. Now imagine if we became planetary conscious beings, the global networks of advanced communicators all over the planet emerge. There is no war in a space in the middle of nowhere. There is no right or wrong when we don't even know what gravity is. We don't even know if time is an abstraction or if it's an actuality. You see, so the world is an artwork, and God, I'll give you a recommendation. If you open your eyes in the morning and you have hatred for anything in the world, you're going to be shocked to realize you have hatred for yourself. Because, it's as if it is a part of change. Carl Jung spoke about this. That some things in life make you realize not the shadow of the world, make you realize your shadow. And you can say the weak mind gets rid of its hatred through the other. The strong mind doesn't let the hatred leave the inner realms. There was something I learned from the story of a martial artist in Las Vegas. This martial artist was going in Las Vegas, and suddenly this person bumps shoulders with him or something, and the person's intoxicated and hot-headed, and suddenly it's like the person wants to fight, and the person doesn't know this guy is like a next level martial artist. Then two of his friends are there, and they're like they're just waiting to see what happens. They're like, next level martial artist friend about to fight some person in a club or something. And it's obviously, and the martial artist was just walking, and it's the other person's thought. But because the person is drunk and the ego is like feeling like a god on a cloud, the person can't apologize, right? So check this out. What the person does, the person who has the greater skill, the person who has the greater skill in the moment, the martial artist, he apologizes to the hot-headed person. Because he knows that sometimes the human being behaves to prove things to himself, but not realizing actually what is going on in the world. That means when a person truly knows they have power, they don't need to demonstrate. They don't need to show it. Do you know? Work requires power, but to show off power, that makes no, technically, mystically, it makes no sense. Because the mystic is going towards a union of recognition that it's like the self is world powered in the outer realms, and in the inner realms, the world is self powered. Guys, I just noticed the microphone volume was suddenly accidentally, I had moved it pretty low, so I think people can actually hear the last 10 minutes. Oh well. It's just, here's the thing. Regardless of a person's conditioning, on a design and existential level, emotions have nothing to do with intelligence. That means there's something about the world that if it's an outer realm movement, prior to any opinion or belief or ideology, I'll tell you, it's like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we feel we know exactly, like our beliefs are true. Like, it's hilarious. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but when it comes to what do you believe, what do I believe, you know? It's all show and tell, you know. It's, even though today is actually Halloween, but the world has been playing Halloween ever since ideological Halloween, ever since idol worship passed. Literally, idol worship, like a Pokemon, transformed into idea worship. And idea worship is transforming into, I would say, experience worship. And experience cannot be worshipped. It doesn't need to be worshipped. It knows. A person actually doesn't need information if they know how to do something. And sometimes information is needed. I would say all that universities teach, that's just backup systems. Because true knowledge has to be moved from within. It has to literally be an effort. That means the sooner a human being realizes that from within is where the original force roars. Our minds are the most advanced technology in this universal sector. No. Bond, you make Bond. So by the way, guys, sometimes in the middle of this, if you're new and tuning in, I respond to the chat section. Bond, you're making some incredible points. When you say the more you have, the more you want, is that logic? I'll tell you, it's not the more you have, the more you want. What a person wants is different. When a person is an infant, they want a toy. Do you know? When they are older, they want a relationship. Do you know? It's like literally, it's one human being, an effort, and it's not that it's just in that pathway of thought that I'm paving. I'm just saying that it's as if the toys were just like toy figures, toy soldiers. Then the child became a soldier, right? And in like the world wars, what was it? 85 million people died. Like, it's mind-boggling. 85 million genetical lines of continuity. Imagine 8 billion. Sorry, not 8 billion. 85 million torches that have been carried on for generations suddenly going out. There has been such ridiculous errors. There is no power in a changing world. There's no power you can hold forever, really. Okay, so Bond says freedom of technology is not free humanity living in utopia. It is love, Mr. Within, that is freedom. I am not saying we all go and make civilization into the most comfortable couch to just lie down on. Do you know? I'm saying that an advanced civilization is treating the citizen as a multidimensional being. That means utopia is one dimension. The dystopia is another dimension. These are variations of the moment. Can you imagine if our species never had discovered language and we were just silent body language? It was like right now what we think is like, we say 90% of communication is like body language or something. I don't know, it's like some random statistic that was thrown at some point in history. You know? But I'm saying if we didn't have language and we were silent, I would say it wouldn't mean we would know less. It would just mean we would know differently. That means a silent civilization and a language civilization. Because if you take away literally the names and the ideologies and anything that can be written on paper or put into a story or named, you literally have creatures. We're literally like the squirrels and the birds in the sky. They don't care about their personalities, and that's why they have hyperattention in their biology. They are present before they are. I mean, like it's like you can be present before you're a person. And if you are content with your unknown presence, you will have no problem witnessing how known personalities animate. And as Chuang Tzu says, thoughts are like leaves of a tree where they pass as the seasons go. That means it's as if like we are growing with the world we're in. And when we forget that, we stop being human. Bond says, what is the true religion of humanity? Silence. Silence, or such an advanced multidimensional and so fast. That means either we're trying to touch infinity or we're trying to touch the void. Because duality has gone out of control. Duality is out of control. It's designed that way. You know, it's like you're designed to do something good and then your attention to go on the bad. The bad is designed for you to do something bad, but your conscience is good. I thought, like, how hilarious is this, right? That a person is like living two lives, and that explains why there's the mind is a dialogue. Thinking is like a dialogue. What we call human is an entity, an evolutionary creature that maybe, 250,000 years it has noticed itself. That means for as long as we don't know, we were just movement. Consciousness was movement eons before it could become a static position in the space-time continuum. Razio in the chat section shares a quote from Chuang Tzu. Once I dreamt I was a butterfly, for all intents and purposes a butterfly. Then I woke up. Now I don't know if I'm a butterfly or a human. Yeah, Zen masters have, I don't know, I feel too much neutrality can also make your desires otherworldly. That means you can't be nothing, you can't be everything, and it's technically we can't, in a changing world, we can't be one position. So in the Upanishads, when they were like, not this, neti, like not this, everybody, to the disciples, the yogis would say that, the rishis. So that would literally mean any language is like us taking a picture of a film and treating that picture like the whole film. It's like getting one impression of a person and thinking you know exactly who they are. There was this story I heard about a shoemaker. In an advanced civilization, effort is first taught to be wielded through communication. Communication is learning to use our mind like a body. That means as if, like, imagine your mind is like an Iron Man suit where thoughts are kind of like the suit, and honestly, what suits the person is really how their mind generates. And we will care too much for the world to endure it inefficiently. Evil is innocent when it comes to looking at it from nature. When I say evil is innocent, I mean just the archetype of chaos. It's there. Chaos has been in nature, the meaningless, the null, that which takes the value of life from meaning to suddenly having no meaning. The eyes that transition from matter suddenly into being space, from moving matter to silent space, to still space. And as attention, liberation becomes more and more a collective effort. So civilization is advancing, technically always, because a human being, as long as human beings are moving, there's some level of advancement, But the vision of an advanced civilization, like the vision of an invention that endlessly builds inventions, or the vision of the first castle in the sky, a civilization that embraces individual beings, embraces dualistic beings, and even individual beings identifying as a dualistic being. A society, a civilization that in some sense even accepts the void. That means just because there is no body doesn't mean there is no mind. Perhaps we are the world dreaming we are a self. The rise and fall of civilizations is literally like evaporation and rainfall. We live individually, then we evaporate into a collective state. Then from that collective state, we fall back down. That means it could be that there is no karma unless there is a self to have that karma. So this means in moments where there's karmic turbulence, be selfless. That's the remedy. When the world is acting beyond your control, selflessly witness it. Not only should the human being be comfortable communicating in the outer realms, watching and actually looking and perceiving properly, or I wouldn't say properly, I would say perceiving directly, experientially the outer realms. And after we have comfort with being free in the outer realms, our inner realms being able to be expressed in the outer realms, then we can properly journey in the inner realms, because then we know how to pilot it. We know how to bring it down. That means, I would say Adi Yogi, the first yogi, was, you can say, the Wright brothers. He was like the Wright brothers that built the first plane. In the inner realms. That means, imagine, for example, like, this is pretty sci-fi, but imagine a group of advanced civilizations come to meet Earth, or before human beings were here at all, let's say they were just in another dimension, just to grant this some sort of potential fictional validity. In another dimension, imagine there were different, from different star systems, poetically, different spaceships. And these spaceships had no way of entering, in some sense, Earth. That means, imagine the atmosphere was here before even creatures were. So the curiosity of that beyond the atmosphere was first with the atmosphere. That means, if this is ridiculous, this is a very poetic statement, but if the atmosphere could talk, it would know secrets before the creature ever opened its eyes. But anyways, I'm saying this example of these different sectors, imagine, of the cosmos. Imagine like how we have constellations, we've named constellations. Imagine like beings came from those constellations. So from those constellations, there were different, imagine, star fleets in an invisible dimension. That's kind of like make Star Trek fans happy here. And so these star fleets are here. They can't enter the atmosphere, and the only way to enter the atmosphere is by the attention entering the atmosphere and being reborn from the world. That means you have to, there is no way of, you have to be reborn into that intelligence sphere, into the intelligence of that sphere. So imagine the first Starfleet who got one of their crew members to go, or the whole, somehow maybe the whole crew was just from the Starfleet controlling one human being or whatever. And imagine Adi Yogi, the first yogi, being the first Starfleet that managed to somehow appear a body, appear a creature of some sort, of an advanced sort, a conscious creature. Because the first human being means the first creature who realized it is not different than the other creatures. Now, even though that's a sci-fi example I used, I feel everybody should literally do this scariest thing they can do in Halloween. I mean, I should. Okay, let me not. I think, like, you know, breach the cultural program. For people who don't realize complexity arises from simplicity, life can never be simple for them. And true power has to have mastery over simplicity and complexity. Because then it's not power, then it's just a phase. Attention is a word we give for a universe forgetting itself in the eyes of an individual that was never there. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. All right, a few statements, and then I'm going to go into some quote tunnels. We are not machines, so truth cannot be perfection. And we are not just objects, so truth cannot be imperfect. It's all meaningless. It's not a possibility. There's too much movement. So life is best kept as an unknown moment where the narrative unfolds. I feel like that's really true divinity. No, the new is like the most divine thing ever. If we time traveled and showed, like, just dropped like a phone playing music in front of like a tribe that was still like a spear level technology, you know, that tribe would look at that phone and their minds would be blown. It's as if they would totally like not know what is reality anymore, you know. You love the self and all the fragmented psyche and all the how the cake is cut up into different pieces is realized as one cake. When you love the world, all the cakes are noticed and the greater store is realized. So any human being who trains their attention by observing how the dimensions of the realm are happening, I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you what to expect. I'll just tell you something will change. Because it's not just that there are secrets in the outer realms. There's secrets in the inner realms as well. What I mean by that is there's ways the moment happens that whatever reason you input, you're like, oh my God, is all human reasoning in some sense just sculpting a moment that regardless of what language we overlay on top of it, is still happening in a certain way? And you know, and Bon, there's something I've noticed in the chat section. I'm going to say there's something about what you're saying that it counters each other. So we want to save humanity, but you're like, we got to get rid of everyone. You know, it's impossible. You know, it's like we can't, if we the best state, it's like world peace cannot happen until we become polite strangers. Until we cross that obstacle course, it's like world peace is out of the picture. You know, we have to be able to communicate in all the potential states of intelligence. That means right now maybe we were focused on objects, now we're moving into the era of advanced communication, we're focused on subjects and living as a mind. Beyond this, it doesn't just mean non-dualism. It means very advanced usage of how we're an object and subject at the same time. So you can say only a person who knows Guys, I was just typing a lot. I'm trying to make this point just this whole time that there is a world inside a world, and our free will is inside a world. What I mean by that is there's so many dimensions to life that we cannot control. What can I say? We're animals. We're animals, I tell you. There's so much we don't know about this world that to feel we know is like it's like who can wear a top hat that big, you know? The thing is that slowly the species will wake up to this. We will notice that we were lied to by ourselves, that we were national entities, culturally separate entities, that we have always been human beings first, before whatever paint of language is thrown. Onto the silent canvas, you know. And you know, we are alive once in this format, in this template of manifestation called the elemental template. I mean, honestly, if this world was a simulation, imagine like an alien, an actual extraterrestrial gaming company, and we're like the test, you know, product of their you know, that would be like gamer metaphysics, you know. The game developers are like the god. It's like, you know, the gods have opened these worlds for us. We call ourselves human, we don't act like it. We try to be human, you know, we act like human, you know, but the inspiration for our actions are from our mind, so our actions technically are not human inspired, they're mystery of the inner realm inspired. And so it's you gotta forgive the world as many times as you need to forgive yourself. You know, it's as if like the person's like, man, I gotta forgive myself, you know. And they ask the person, imagine, why do you have to forgive yourself? You know, why is it so important for you to forgive yourself? And the person's like, if I don't forgive myself, it's like I haven't forgiven a part of this world. So I gotta forgive myself because the world deserves a better human being, you know. And the cool thing about inner realms, what I realized, the pilot is the most beautiful metaphysical analogy. It is literally we are going to become not pilots of the sky of one dimension, but many skies. And it's very strange, you know, in the day I find myself really just no longer chasing a good model or a bad model, or no longer, it's like life has moved past what subjects can show and what objects can show. So the person after these two, let's say, atmospheres, they go beyond to the experiential domain. The experiential is after the synchronicity phase. So all those people who have noticed Carl Jungian synchronicity, it doesn't mean it's a high five to glorify the ego that felt it was powerful in one dimension. It's really what it is that your mind and body are moving side by side. That means when I say make your mind an ally, your ally in these talks, I say. So it's the Jungian synchronicity, like the person suddenly picks up their phone and they're like, no way, one, oh my God, they just crack their phone in half out of like divine bliss. So that Jungian synchronicity means the mind managed to slow itself down and the body managed to be still enough to suddenly notice the mind's momentum. That means it's as if the being has activated a rhythm. And most likely this mystical, I shouldn't say mystical, I would say this rhythm, this unknown rhythm, somehow in the ignorance of Western culture, it's as if you see nature is moving towards strangely a balance, That means the ripples of the pond settle. The calm becomes the revelation in the storm. It's like the story of humanity. Prophets turned into prophets, spelled with an I. And the world forgot that regardless of narrative value, it's like, what can you expect? It's like we're global today. We were national yesterday, we're global today, and we'll be universal tomorrow. What else can happen? What can happen to drops? We either die alone or we do something as a group. Like what? It's like the bees, either they go and start their own hives, or they're like, okay, it doesn't make sense every bee make their own hive. If right now we're like each bee is trying to make their own hive, so it's literally one person making a hexagon, but it's not connected to the other hexagons, So it's as if like we haven't understood that power once combined becomes greater power, Now the biggest challenge of opening up to we're not creatures that have like elemental power. We're not like the airbender in the outer realms, but in the inner realms, how the attention can animate and entertain image can come close to being real. And those human beings in society who cannot discriminate between the inner realms and outer realms, they cannot observe themselves in society. So they are locked technically in their inner realms. And this could be based on so many factors. Like in downtown Toronto, Canada, of course, is a great country, but sometimes I feel its greatness is still waiting. There's way more that can be done. And so in downtown Toronto, like there was a point in my life where I could tell you I was there for a year and a half. Just in my breaks, I would just have a smoke and just be like, okay, let's see what the world has come to in 2020. That means it's like, if like imagine somebody literally documented what's happening right now, that would be a history book. Technically what if I say there's a cup on this table, guys, I'm writing history, that means the moment is a snapshot of history. It just hasn't become the history yet, So in downtown Toronto, I saw people, like there was this one person who I would say, and of course these are based on so many factors, you know, the health of the person, the choices of the person, the exposure to the chaos the person has had that has dehumanized them. That means the most important thing is that we have to keep ourselves human, you know. There was this, anyways, I'll finish this thing and I'll go on to I saw a person shout at a building, literally have like shout at a building, not even like a window or where it was his reflection, just straight out shout at a wall of a building. You know, there was this, and there's so many different examples, but it's like the downtown of all countries, I think, is where the defeated and the successful walk in the same streets, blind to each other. You know? Anytime we don't stay true to how we are human, there's consequences. And the consequences of it in the inner realms is distrust. That means the less able we appear, or try to, like, the less we care for advancement, the more we're stuck in the same problem. That means history repeats, not because the world has an issue, it's because we haven't grown up. You know, the species hasn't grown up. Anyways, find a world you can trust, then discover yourself anew. We are in existence's room. But existence is an experience's room. So if we identify with the experiencer, beyond the secrets of time, we will find the secrets of space. Beyond the secrets of space, through the unknown, novelty is the only thing that can happen. And even though, guys, I said I'm going to go into a quote tunnel, I'm just going to read a few quotes from Heidegger and just end it off. Martin Heidegger, this German philosopher, he says he's contributed to just general human ontology, like how we are being. Martin Heidegger says man acts as though he were the shaper and master of language, while in fact language remains the master of man. Heidegger says, if I take death into my life, acknowledge it and face it squarely, I will free myself from the anxiety of death and the pettiness of life, and only then will I be free to become myself. Heidegger says every man is born as many men and dies as a single one. Heidegger says to dwell is to garden. Heidegger says the most thought-provoking thing in our thought-provoking time is that we're still not thinking. Heidegger says man is not the lord of beings, man is the shepherd of being. Heidegger says man is the okay, let me go back to that. Heidegger says man is not the lord of beings, man is the shepherd of beings. That means Once is the Lord of man. That's what it means. Anyways, let's keep going. Heidegger says the possible ranks higher than the actual. The possible ranks higher than the actual. Heidegger says language is the house of the truth of being. That means our attention is inhabiting ideological structure. Heidegger says thinking begins only when we have come to know that reason, glorified for centuries, is the stiff-necked adversary of thought. Heidegger says transcendence constitutes selfhood. Yeah, because the story of our eyes is limited to how we are self. So you cannot transcend anything in the world if the self doesn't change. That means if the self hasn't changed, that means what transcends? That means the awareness to how the moment is even a self, or is it even more than a self? As far as we know as human beings, it's like the infant child, I gotta say this, the infant child is born, and the child doesn't have a personality, then the earliest memory of the person is like they wake up into their personality. We're born into existence, but we wake up into our individualism based on how we're communicated to, where the mind suddenly catches on to the game of individualism. So children are there because their selfhood doesn't have structure. They are more like potential and infinitely potential beings, rather than they're like kind of just pretty much what I even wonder about myself when I was a kid. It's as if it was as if nobody is ever one thing, and it's like there's this endless overlay, this experience tunneling, as if as if the transcendence beyond the self has nothing to do with the world anymore. Heidegger says being and time determine each other reciprocally, but in such a manner that neither can the former, being, be addressed as something temporal, nor can the latter, time, be addressed as a being. So Heidegger is saying that being and time are inseparable, yet the way we address it is different. Heidegger says only a God can save us alone. Heidegger says the human being is not the Lord of... I read that. Heidegger says time is not a thing, thus nothing which is, and yet it remains constant in its passing away without being something temporal like the beings in time. Guys, I'm going to add something here. It's not from Heidegger. I just remembered a quote from Da Vinci where he says, for the person that uses time, time will wait. As if Da Vinci was kind of giving a clue that time is subjective, so you always have enough time, like in theoretically, So if the mind can theoretically be timeless, but the body also is conscious of time, So as if you become a being where you are watching yourself in space and time, but you're noticing that because you're watching the self, there can be a space and there can be a time. So eventually dualism either goes through the path of the singular void or it goes towards the infinite void. Heidegger says to think being itself explicitly requires disregarding being to the extent that it is only grounded and interpreted in terms of beings and for beings as their ground, as in all metaphysics. Okay guys, I gotta go through this again. He says, to think being, capital B, itself explicitly requires disregarding being to the extent that it is only grounded and interpreted in terms of beings and for beings as their ground, as in all metaphysics. I feel maybe because this is a chunk of a paragraph, maybe it's like the context is not clear. Oh yeah, that means Heidegger is saying as if we kind of like we can't know true being because the way we're interpreting how we're being is for us. That means we are out of necessity interpreting. So could that be false view on being? You know, perhaps something in these lines. Heidegger says making itself intelligible is suicide for philosophy. Oh my god. What he means is that you gotta keep the unknown alive or there's no point to the known. Heidegger says true time is four-dimensional. Heidegger says we do not say being is, time is, but rather there is being and there is time. There's being and there's time. There was this psychologist named Erich Fromm, and he shared this incredible idea that he literally noticed this in his lifetime, that back in the day people would say we are in love, not that we have love. Do you know, that means things were being, that means the mindset was more perceptive to how things were, but somehow culture's narrative shifted to having, do you know? And this concept of a have has to always keep the I thought there, you know? Martin Heidegger says the human body is essentially something other than an animal organism. Heidegger says being alone is a deficient mode of being with. Its possibility is a proof for the latter. Heidegger says, why are there beings at all instead of nothing? Heidegger says, when modern physics exerts itself to establish the world's formula, what occurs thereby is this: the being of entities has resolved itself into the method of the totally calculable. Yeah, we just put all our baskets, all our eggs in the observable universe's basket. You know? Heidegger says, as the ego cogito subjectively is the consciousness that represents something, relates this representation back to itself and so gathers with itself. Yeah, a person learns from their own expression all the time. That means everybody is learning from how they're functioning as a creature. some quotes to read from the poet Hafez. This Sufi mystic from 700 years ago or something. He says, I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. I was expecting more quotes. Well, hold on, guys. Okay, there we go. Hafez says, your heart and my heart are very, very old friends, as if nature began as one being. Hafez says, I wish I could show you this astonishing light of your own being. I read that. He says, stay close to anything that makes you glad you are alive. Hafez says, I have learned so much from God that I can no longer call myself a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jew. The truth has shared so much of itself with me that I can no longer call myself a man, a woman, an angel, or even a pure soul. Love has befriended me so completely, it has turned to ash and freed me of every concept and image my mind has ever known. Yeah, this Hafez has become the sky. Yeah, that's the way to go. Hafez says, now is the time to know that all that you do is sacred. Now is the time for you to deeply compute the impossibility that there is anything but grace. Hafez says, I am happy even before I have a reason. Hafez says, the beauty of you delights me. The sight of you amazes me, for the pearl does this and the ocean does that. Hafez says, it is written on the gate of heaven, nothing in existence is more powerful than destiny. And destiny brought you here to this page, which is part of your ticket, as all things are, to return to God. Hafez says, for a day, just for one day, talk about that which disturbs no one and bring some peace into those beautiful eyes. Hafez says, people say that the soul, on hearing the song of creation, entered the body, but in reality, the soul itself was the song. Hafiz says, laugh because that is the purest sound. Hafiz says, happiness is right in front of you. Hafiz says, there's a madman inside of you who's always running for office. Hafiz says, what is the precious love and laughter budding in our hearts? It is the glorious sound of a soul waking up. Hafiz says, everyone is God speaking. Why not be polite and listen to him? Hafiz says, I'm a hole in a flute that the Christ's breath moves through. Listen to this music. Hafiz says, remember, for just 1 minute of the day, it would be best to try looking upon yourself more as God does, for she knows your true royal nature. And last but not least, Hafiz says, the sky where we live is no place to lose your wings. So love, love, love. Hafiz says, now is the time to know that all that you do is sacred, is reproductive. Hafiz says, greatness is always built on this foundation. The ability to appear, speak, and act is the most common man. Hafiz says, plant a seed so your heart will grow. Hafiz says, only heart to heart can speak the bliss of mystic knowers. Hafiz says, what is the root of all these words? One thing, love. But a love so deep and sweet it needed to express itself with scents, sounds, colors that never before existed. Hafiz says all these words are just a front. What I would really like to do is okay, I'll move past that quote. Hafiz says, dear ones, be aware of the tiny gods frightened men create to bring an aesthetic relief to their sad days. Hafiz says poetry reveals that there is no empty space. Hafiz says time is a factory where everyone slaves away earning enough love to break their own chains. Hafiz says your separation from God is the hardest work you will ever do. Keep in mind, guys, this man is from 700 years ago. He's saying this. Hafiz says, in time of trouble, avert not thy face from hope, for the soft marrow abideth in the hard bone. All right. Hafiz says, how do I listen to others? As if everyone were my master speaking to me his cherished last words. Hafiz says, we have not come here to take prisoners, but to surrender ever more deeply to freedom and joy. Hafiz says, be content with what thou hast received and smooth thy frowning forehead, for the door of choice is not open either to thee or me. I could totally see Shakespeare and Hafiz like battling it out, you know. Hafiz says, everyone, whether he's self-denying or self-indulgent, is seeking after the beloved. Every place may be the shrine of love, whether it be a mosque or synagogue. That means really it's like nature's freaking out over language, and how that language makes human beings feel that there's only one way things can happen. Hafiz says, your life within God's arms, your dance within God's arms is already perfect. Hafiz says, only a perfect one who is always laughing at the word too can make you know of love. Hafiz says, the earth has disappeared beneath my feet. It fled from all my ecstasy. Now like a singing air creature, I feel the rose keep opening. Yeah, these are like, I mean, back in the day, it's like nature was the only thing that you could pretty much write about. Hafiz says, words have no language which can utter the secrets of love, and beyond the limits of expression is the expounding of desire. Hafiz says, how seek the way which leadeth to our wishes? By renouncing our wishes, the crown of excellence is renunciation. Wow, yeah. Hafiz says, on the holy boughs of the celestial tree high up in the heavenly fields, beyond terrestrial desire, my soul dash bird a warm nest has built. Hafiz says, love is simply creation's greatest joy. Hafiz says, there is an ambush everywhere from the army of accidents, therefore the rider of life runs with loosened reins. Guys, one more quote and we're finally through the quote tunnel. This was, you know, these are long tunnels, you know. Hafiz says, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you live in better conditions. Hafiz says, come, for the house of hope is built on sand. Bring wine, for the fabric of life is as weak as the wind. Hafiz says, I know you have 100 complex cases against God in court, but never mind, let's just get out of this mess. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. War being existence's room, every moment of sight is its own answer. And just the use of the practical component to these two types of multidimensionality, we are, again, as I've said like so many times, like we are the unknown observer. That unknown observer has an ability of discretion beyond what it is observing. That means if we're inside the box, we can't know how easy it is to open the box, for example, you know, or we don't know what's outside of the box. But it's as if at the same time, the solution can be also instant. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Namaste.